Hare Krishna. So we'll continue our study of Srila Prabhupada's introduction to Bhagavad-gita as it is. And yesterday we read through the middle of page 7 of the introduction to Bhagavad-gita as it is. So we'll continue on page 7 of the introduction, starting with the paragraph that begins, "The subject of the Bhagavad-gita entails." It's Sunday, August 11th, 2024. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Okay. And
Can you say where you are again?
Yes. Introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is. Now, in my edition, I'm on page 7.
Okay, so
We're going to start on the middle of page 7, the paragraph that begins, "The subject of the Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths."
yes.
Okay. And before continuing to read, we'll recite a few more mantras to continue to invoke auspiciousness in our gathering. And these mantras are found right at the beginning of the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. If you want to chant, follow along. Om Jnanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayamupakadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitan Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshware Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatayubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyeva Cha Patitanan Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine. Hare Krishna. We're studying the introduction to Bhagavad Gita as it is. And right now, yesterday, we completed through the middle of page 7 of the introduction, page 7 on the edition I have. So we're starting with the sentence that begins, "The subject of the Bhagavad Gita entails the comprehension of 5 basic truths." So these are the 5 tattvas, or the philosophical pillars of Bhagavad Gita. First of all, the science of God is explained, and then the constitutional position of the living entities jivas. There is Ishvara, which means controller, and there are jivas, the living entities which are controlled. If a living entity says that he is not controlled but that he is free, then he is insane. The living being is controlled in every respect, at least in his conditioned life. So in the Bhagavad-gita, the subject matter deals with the Ishvara, the supreme controller, and the jivas, the controlled living entities. Prakriti, material nature, and time, the duration of existence of the whole universe, or the manifestation of material nature, and karma, activity, are also discussed. The cosmic manifestation is full of different activities. All living entities are engaged in different activities. From Bhagavad Gita, we must learn what God is, what the living entities are, what Prakriti is, what the cosmic manifestation is, and how it is controlled by time, and what the activities of the living entities are. Out of these 5 basic subject matters in Bhagavad Gita, it is established that the Supreme Godhead, or Krishna, or Brahman, or Supreme Controller, or Paramatma, you may use whatever name you like, is the greatest of all. The living beings are in quality like the Supreme Controller. For instance, the Lord has control over the universal affairs, over material nature, etc., as will be explained in the later chapters of Bhagavad Gita. Material nature is not independent. She is acting under the directions of the Supreme Lord. As Lord Krishna says, Prakriti is working under my direction. When we see wonderful things happening in the cosmic nature, we should know that behind this cosmic manifestation, there is a controller. Nothing could be manifested without being controlled. It is childish not to consider the controller. For instance, a child may think that an automobile is quite wonderful to be able to run without a horse or other animal pulling it. But a sane man knows the nature of the automobile's engineering arrangement. He always knows that behind the machinery, there is a man, a driver. Similarly, the Supreme Lord is a driver, under whose direction everything is working. Now the jivas, or the living entities, have been accepted by the Lord, as we will note in the later chapters, as his parts and parcels. A particle of gold is also gold. A drop of water from the ocean is also salty. And similarly, we, the living entities, being part and parcel of the Supreme Controller, Ishvara or Bhagavan, Lord Sri Krishna, have all the qualities of the Supreme Lord in minute quantity, because we are minute Ishvaras, subordinate Ishvaras. We are trying to control nature as presently we are trying to control space or planets, and this tendency to control is there because it is in Krishna. But although we have a tendency to lord it over material nature, we should know that we are not the supreme controller. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita. What is material nature? This is also explained in Gita as inferior prakriti, inferior nature. The living entity is explained as the superior prakriti. Prakriti is always under control, whether inferior or superior. Prakriti is female, and she is controlled by the Lord, just as the activities of a wife are controlled by the husband. Prakriti is always subordinate, predominated by the Lord, who is the predominator. The living entities and material nature are both predominated, controlled by the Supreme Lord. According to the Gita, the living entities, although parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are to be considered Prakriti. This is clearly mentioned in the 7th chapter, 5th verse of Bhagavad Gita, Aparaya mitastvanyam. This Prakriti is my lower nature. Prakritim vidime param jiva bhuta mahabahu yayedam daryate jagat. And beyond this, there is another Prakriti, jiva bhutam, the living entity. Prakriti itself, just for those who joined recently, we're studying Bhagavad Gita as it is, introduction. Right now, on the edition I have, we're towards the bottom of page 8 of the introduction. The paragraph begins with the sentence, Prakriti itself is constituted by three qualities: the mode of goodness, the mode of passion, and the mode of ignorance. Above these modes there is eternal time, and by a combination of these modes of nature and under the control and purview of eternal time, there are activities which are called karma. These activities are being carried out from time immemorial, and we are suffering or enjoying the fruits of our activities. For instance, suppose I am a businessman and have worked very hard with intelligence and have amassed a great bank balance. Then I am an enjoyer. But then, say I have lost all my money in business. Then I am a sufferer. Similarly, in every field of life, we enjoy the results of our work, or we suffer the results. This is called karma. Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, Jiva, the living entity, Prakriti, nature, eternal time, and karma, activity, are all explained in the Bhagavad-gita. Out of these five, the Lord, the living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. The manifestation of Prakriti may be temporary, but it is not false. So we think of matter as temporary, but actually the material energy is eternal. It's always existing, sometimes manifest, sometimes not manifest. And so, in a sense, the material universe, the material creation, it exists and it doesn't, it's eternal, it's temporary. The energy is eternal. But the forms it takes are temporary and illusory. Illusory in the sense of, so this body, it's made of real energy, but the form is temporary. In 100 years, this body won't be here. Actually, even in 1 second, the body won't be here. The form of the body is always changing, imperceptibly. So all of the forms, whether of an atom or a nation or a planetary system, the forms are temporary, but the energy is eternal. So of the five basic truths, philosophical principles of Bhagavad Gita, Ishvara, or God, the Jiva, the living entity, Kala, time, Kalosmi, Pravita Lokakshaya Krit. Krishna says later in Bhagavad Gita, time I am, destroyer of worlds. As we mentioned yesterday, I think in morning class, Robert Oppenheimer, upon the first atomic bomb explosion, I guess in New Mexico or somewhere, when they tested the atomic bomb, and he was in a bunker watching it, and he quoted Bhagavad Gita. He learned Sanskrit to study Bhagavad Gita. He appreciated the wisdom here. And he quoted that verse, time I am, destroyer of worlds, kalosmi, pravita lokakshaya krit. Material energy, time, jiva, Ishvara, these are eternal. And the one element that's temporary, that's karma. So karma can be changed, karma can be destroyed. Karma is not eternal. We create it and we can transcend it, we can change it. And I expect we'll talk more about that as our class and discussion goes on. I'll read a bit more from Prabhupada's purport here in Bhagavad Gita as it is. Out of these five, the Lord, the living entities, material nature, and time are eternal. The manifestation of Prakriti may be temporary, but it is not false. Some philosophers say that the manifestation of material nature is false. But according to the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, or according to the philosophy of the Vaishnavas, this is not so. The manifestation of the world is not accepted as false. It is accepted as real, but temporary. It is likened unto a cloud which moves across the sky, or the coming of the rainy season, which nourishes grains. As soon as the rainy season is over, and as soon as the cloud goes away, all the crops which were nourished by the rain dry up. Similarly, this material manifestation takes place at a certain interval, stays for a while, and then disappears. So Srila Prabhupada gives the analogy of a cloud, and the whole material creation is described as like a cloud in the corner of the spiritual sky. And sometimes that cloud is manifest and sometimes not manifest. Okay. And it is described, Krishna Surya Sama, Mayahaya Andakara. Krishna is like the sun, Maya is like darkness or a cloud. So just like from our vision, we might, let's say it's a cloudy day. We can say, the sun's not out, right? The sun's covered, there's no sun, the sun's not out. But actually, the sun's shining brightly, the sun's unaffected, it's in its place in the sky, it's doing its thing. The sun's not covered. We're covered. Our relative puny tiny vision is covered by the relatively small cloud. But from our point of view, the cloud's big, maybe, but the cloud's really just covering a few miles in the sky. Okay. But so the sun's not covered, but our vision is covered. So Krishna's always there, God's there, Krishna is there, and to the extent that we're choosing to be under the cloud of Maya, we're not realizing Krishna, we're not seeing Krishna. Yes. And to take that example even further, not just does the cloud not really cover the sun, it just covers our little vision. Right? I mean, so, well, there's the sun, and we're compared to the sun rays. The jiva spirit souls are compared to the sun rays. So the cloud might cover some, a few rays of the sun, but it doesn't cover the sun globe. And so, also importantly, the sun creates the cloud. The cloud, the cloud only exists because of the sun, right? Through the mechanism of precipitation and evaporation, the sun gets water from the oceans, and then the sun creates the cloud. So similarly, it's not like Maya is the devil that's fighting God or something like that. So the force of Maya or Kali, they are all servants of Krishna. It's described in Brahma Samhita. Shrishti stiti pralaya sadhana shakti reka chayeva yasya bhuvanani viparti durga Ichanupamapi yasya chachestatesa govindamari pusham tamaham bhajami govindamari pusham tamaham bhajami. And so that describes that Brahma saying, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, and Maya, or Durga. Durga means fortress. It's like it's the god, it's the supreme goddess of the material energy. And so this material world's compared to like a prison house or a fortress, but it's described that supreme goddess, she's like the warden of the prison house. She's not an enemy of the king. She's not an enemy of the government. She's just serving to please the government, to please the king. Maya is a great devotee of Krishna, and she has a somewhat thankless task to deal with people with rebellious conditioned souls like us. So the cloud is created by the sun. And so Krishna reciprocates with our desire, either through the external energy of Maya, Durga, Kali, or through the internal energy. So if we want the cloud of Maya to be removed, then Krishna, through super soul or through whatever means he chooses, Krishna will remove the cloud of Maya, and then we get to realize our natural existence. And so the jiva, we're talking about the 5 principles of Bhagavad-gita. Jiva, or the spirit soul, that's us. Ishvara, the supreme lord. Prakriti, material nature. Time, kala, and karma. Of the 5, karma is temporary, the others are eternal. So as the jiva, we have this Maya false ego. this illusion that I am this body and I'm the designations connected with this body, whatever, black, white, Arab, Jew, I'm this height, I've got this color hair, I'm 63 years old. Okay, so we're misidentifying the eternal soul with the temporary body. So that's the influence of Maya, because a term we use a lot, because we want to do our own God project, and then we have each we have desires to fulfill this kind of virtual reality, false, shadowy character. Okay, and then Bhagavad Gita is revealed by Sri Krishna in his discussion with Sri Arjuna. Bhagavad Gita is revealed really to encourage us to transform the quality of our desires, rather than to serve illusion and to serve Maya, right? Maya, to serve the illusion of this body and this material ego. So this process of bhakti, the goal, the purpose, it's not about getting rid of ego. Prabhupada indicates that here. We're studying from the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. On the version I have, we're on chapter 9 at this time. So ego means a sense of who we are, and we are someone. So this process of Krishna consciousness or bhakti yoga, it's about getting rid of false ego, a false conception, an analogy often used. So we're not the car, we're the driver of the car. So to think that I am these windshield wipers, I'm this gas tank, I'm the steering wheel, that's illusion, right? So, oh, I'm the driver of the car. What are the natural activities of the driver of the car? Okay, so the natural activities of the spirit soul in full enlightenment is to express natural desire to serve Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So that's yes, yeah, correct. Thank you, Deb. So that Prabhupada, one of his shorter books is called The Path of Perfection. Prabhupada talks about the path of perfection quite a bit, including in this introduction, right? And so path of perfection means, as spiritual, to quote Teilhard de Chardin, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. Just like outside the window, there are spiritual beings having a squirrel experience, a blade of grass experience, a cat experience. So the special opportunity in the human form is we get to consciously engage in the path of perfection. We get to consciously engage in self-realization and devotional service to Ishvara, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so this idea of perfection, it's not some externally defined, it's not some externally defined a criteria. I remember once, this was in the early days, back in 1984, I had visited my family in Philadelphia from Israel. That was the chapter when I got kidnapped and this and that. But this was during that visit. But I was talking to my mother about some of these philosophical points, and I was talking about perfection. And she said, well, no one is perfect. Someone's going to have a crooked nose, or I mean something. Okay, so that wasn't so the criteria here, it's about the quality of consciousness. We do have the opportunity to perfect our consciousness, our mentality. Now this is not about, getting into the harsh inner critic and beating ourselves up if we're like light years away from a pure consciousness. But at least, yeah, I feel very fortunate that through Srila Prabhupada, that through Srila Prabhupada, that I know what the path of perfection is. And even if, just like an analogy, like, okay, even if I'm like just kind of wandering in the forest and going nowhere, but I know that path is there. Or even if the path is there, even if I'm on the path and I make like, okay, like I'm practicing for, 42 years now, and I progressed 10 feet or something. And it's just like this millions of miles, infinite path, and that's kind of discouraging. But it's not, because before finding Krishna consciousness, I was completely lost. I didn't even know what the path to perfection is. So there's this path of perfection. It's being on that path to, and it can be all at once. It can be all at once, 100%. I'm surrendering to Krishna. Saradhaman Pritya Mame Kam Sharanam Braja. Tvam Sarapapebhyo Mokshai Shami Mashucha. Krishna says, surrender unto me. And it's the 100% surrendered forever and ever. It's possible. But for resistant persons like me, it tends to be a gradual process. And Krishna completely is empathic with that. It's that 6th chapter Bhagavad-gita. Krishna describes the path of perfection. He says, gradually, step by step. And so to transform my desires from wanting to please matter and my own gross and subtle material senses to desire to please Krishna. And we learn how to please Krishna through serving his pure devotee, Srila Prabhupada. So that's the path of perfection, to be fully engaged 100% in self-realization, distinguishing reality from illusion, not feeding, not nourishing the illusion, and transforming the quality of our desire from matter to God. So Srila Prabhupada, he wrote an offering, like later this month, it's the Vyasa Puj festival of Srila Prabhupada. In common language, it'll be Srila Prabhupada's birthday. And so his followers will, many have the practice to write a personal offering to Srila Prabhupada on his birthday. And so back, I guess in the 1930s or so, Srila Prabhupada wrote an offering to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Sarasvati, his spiritual master. And Bhaktisiddhanta especially liked it, especially appreciated it. And one stanza, Prabhupada wrote a poem, and one stanza, particularly in the poem, that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta so much appreciated this is from Srila Prabhupada's writing, his poetry. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Okay, so it's so, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnas Kaviraj Goswami, he says, essential truth spoken concisely is true eloquence. So that's true eloquence. Absolute is sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. So let's unpack that a bit. Absolute is sentient. So absolute means God. It means that which is true in all time and space, the underlying fabric, the substratum of all existence. And there are different facets of God realization. The most complete understanding, the most complete realization of God realization, of a realization of the absolute, is Sri Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Krishna is Brahmano hi Pratishtaham. He's the source of the oneness of the white light. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Videsha Arjuna Tishtati. Krishna's the super soul. The expansion of God in our own heart is an expansion of Krishna. So the foundation of all existence, inside every atom, and Antarasta, Paramanu Chantarastam, is Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So sentient means senses. So it means personal. Because otherwise we say, oh yeah, I just want to please God. What's that mean practically? It means I do whatever I feel, whenever I want it. Okay. And that's okay. But what is this? What is this I that does whatever I feel? Am I this tongue? Am I these eyes? Am I this ideology I picked up? Am I this belly? What is yeah, yeah, yes, so yes, so what is this I? So actually if we're realizing the I as the spirit soul, then the spirit soul's natural feeling is to enthusiastically serve Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So so senses means a person. Senses means likes and dislikes. Just like I'm a person. There's some types of food I like and dislike. There's some things I can look at and I think, oh, that's attractive. Oh, that's not attractive. And there's some sound, some types of music, some types of sound. Oh, my senses are really attracted. My senses aren't attracted. I have senses kind of like, this is a beautiful day. It's like, oh, it's too hot and humid. Okay, so senses means likes and dislikes. So God's a person. Absolute is sentient. And just to be clear, so Krishna, no matter what we do or don't do, Krishna always loves us. He's always full of compassion. You know, sometimes we'll hear like that. Sometimes we'll hear things like, oh, uh, I don't, I, I'm spiritual. I don't want any of these rules or regulations. God, Krishna loves me whatever I do. Okay, yeah, well, that's not really the question. That's not really the, yeah, okay, so God, Krishna is all compassionate, all loving. But the question is, what am I doing to show my attempts at loving in reciprocation? What am I doing? So just like a parent, you know, whatever the child does, at least ideally, the parent loves the child. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Does that mean that whatever the child does, the parent is equally pleased? No, no. There's some things the child could do, and the parent is just like, wow, that's very dear to my heart. That's so pleasing. I'm so proud of you. And there are other things the child could do. Maybe the child's breaking, maybe the child's stealing this, maybe the child's just having this temper tantrum for no reason. Some things that the child do that the parents are not pleased. No, now the parents are still loving. So saying whatever we do, God will love us. But we get to be in the question, what can I do? How can I mold my life to please God, to please the senses of God? Absolute sentient, thou hast proved. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. To take away, to try to artificially take away the, it's like it's a way to try to kill God, like through philosophy, to try to take away the personhood of God. And then it becomes a calamity. It's a heavy word. Impersonal calamity, brilliant poetry. Impersonal calamity, thou hast moved. Right. So then becomes a, because then in the name of spirituality, then there's no discipline. There's no reference point. There's no reference point. Just again, we're all persons. And for ourselves or people in our life, they're persons. There are things we can do that endears us to them, that pleases them. And there are things that others can do that we're like, well, keep your distance. I'm not pleased with that. This is very irritating. This is annoying. I resent that. Okay, like that. So I'll read a bit more from the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. Okay. So so similarly, this material manifestation takes place at a certain interval, stays for a while, and then disappears. Such are the workings of Prakriti. But this cycle is working eternally. Therefore, Prakriti is eternal. It is not false. The Lord refers to this as my Prakriti. This material nature is the separated energy of the Supreme Lord. And similarly, the living entities are also the energy of the Supreme Lord, but they are not separated. They are eternally related. So the Lord, the living entity, the material nature and time are all interrelated and are all eternal. However, the other item, karma, is not eternal. The effects of karma may be very old. Indeed, we are suffering or enjoying the results of our activities from time immemorial. But we can change the results of our karma or our activity, and this change depends on the perfection of our knowledge. We are engaged in various activities. Undoubtedly, we do not know what sort of activities we should adopt to gain relief from the actions and reactions of all these activities. But this is also explained in the Bhagavad-gita. So it's like a manual for progressing on the path of perfection. It's a manual of how to use this machine, this vehicle. It's like how to, in the Bhagavad-gita, it's a manual and of how to use the human form to achieve real peace, real happiness, real fulfillment. So again, undoubtedly, we do not know what sort of activities we should adopt to gain relief from the actions and reactions of all these activities, but this is also explained in the Bhagavad-gita. The position of Ishvara is that of supreme consciousness. The jivas are the living entities, being parts and parcels of the Supreme Lord, are also conscious. Both the living entity and material nature are explained as Prakriti, the energy of the Supreme Lord. But one of the two, the jiva, is conscious. The other Prakriti is not conscious. That is the difference. Therefore, the jiva Prakriti is called superior because the jiva has consciousness, which is similar to the Lord's. The Lord is supreme consciousness, however, and one should not claim that the jiva, the living entity, is also supremely conscious. In giving the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's also subtly addressing various philosophical deviations from the truths of Bhagavad Gita. So one deviation is that God is impersonal. Another misconception is that actually we are God, we just forgot. Different things like that. The Lord is supreme consciousness, however, and one should not claim that the jiva, the living entity, is also supremely conscious. The living being cannot be supremely conscious at any stage of his perfection, and the theory that he can be so is a misleading theory. Conscious he may be, but he is not perfectly or supremely conscious. So Prabhupada says that we are suffering or enjoying the results of our activities from time immemorial, but we can change the results of our karma or our activity, and this change depends on the perfection of our knowledge. Knowledge can be seen as sattva gun, and this kind of, actually, many of you have experienced aspects of the Sappho programs, the seminars, the coach training, coaching. And so actually that one sentence from the introduction of Bhagavad Gita is a source for a lot of what we do, and other parts of the introduction too. But just like, so the principle is to blame karma is a very lame excuse, and it's philosophically feeble, philosophically invalid, because we can change. Yeah, we've created our karma. We can change our karma. Just like, we focus a lot on communication. So maybe according to my karma, but my karma can sound like it's a victimy thing. I'm the source even of the circumstances of my birth. Just like it's a little complex. Just like if someone's in a prison cell, a particular prison cell, then is it no fair? I'm in this prison cell. I'm limited. I'm not free. Well, I didn't want to be here. The police took me to the court, and then then the judge told the police to bring me and put me in this prison uniform. I didn't come here on my own. I'm not here because of me. Well, actually, you are, because you chose to violate someone's. You chose to break that window and to steal that car and to violate people's rights, and so you chose that, and so this is a natural result of your choice. And if you made different choices, then maybe you'd be living in that house in the hill, or you'd be in the university, or you'd be free to take a vacation with your family. But you made this choice, and so you're here. Okay. So we create being in this particular apartment, compartment, prison cell, depending which metaphor we want to use for the material body, and not just the body, but the whole context that our body's in. All right, so maybe let's say in terms of communication. So in terms of particular karma I created, my psychophysical nature, let's say there's a particular situation where I perceive I'm being insulted or disregarded, and then, okay, so then according to my karma, I would attack back and start calling that person names, or I would yell and shout, or or I would just I would just I would just run away, and I would become, let's call it, I'd create this drum in my mind. I would create this whole narrative, and now, of course, I am always the hero of my narrative. I'm the victim or whatever, and I'd stew in resentment, or I'd insult back, like that. Okay, that according to the karma, that's psychophysical nature I got. And then it's in cultivating, we're just using this example. We could use it in any life area. We focus a lot on communication. But let's say through knowledge, through awareness, I notice that, okay, yeah, I notice this irritation. I notice this bitterness and resentment coming up. And I notice this pattern, the essence of sattva is to bring to conscious perception that which till now has not been perceived. And so I noticed that, yeah, I'm relating to this person just like I related to my dad. Now, this person's not my dad, and at the same time, I can notice that, maybe he does have shortcomings, and maybe he deserves to be insulted, but I'm noticing I'm not I'm not alive in a fresh experience here. I'm bringing a lot of childhood stuff and my reactivity. And okay, with that awareness, with that sattvic awareness, sattva essentially means I'm not just a slave on the yantra mudani maya. I'm not just a slave on the material energy, driven by karma and the gunas and time. Okay, okay, yeah. So I just want to attack back. I just want to run away and in my mind make him wrong and I'm right. Okay, that's the karma, and I'm noticing that, and I'm going to choose something different. So that's just a simple example of transcending our karma, destroying our karma, changing our karma. Just a simple example. Okay, I'm going to do something different. I'm going to endeavor to show understanding of what he said and why he said it, and even though I do have judgments, and I have criticism, and I want to attack all that, I'm not pretending that's not there, but I'm going to respond differently. So that's distinctively the opportunity of a spirit soul in the human form. Animals and plants, their consciousness is so covered, they're pretty much trapped by our karma. We have the capacity in any area of life, whether it's our health habits, our communication habits, our habits of money management, our habits of eating, our habits of sleeping, our habits of what we do at 9 a.m. in the morning. We might have our karma. I know I was growing up in my young adulthood and like that, I was always a night person. I like to stay up late like that. Not really a party person, but a night person. And yeah, so Krishna kind of rise early, right? Rise early. So Pretty regular at rising, like before sunrise, sometimes 2, 3 hours before sunrise. So it's one like I've changed, I've transcended my karma in that one. So in the example we gave about communication, I'm going to show, okay, I hear that you're irritated with me. I hear that you're irritated with me because I didn't return your phone call. And am I understanding you? Okay, so that's like, according to my psychophysical nature, I would never respond to that, but I'm choosing that response. So this is one example of how karma can be destroyed. Okay. Hare Krishna. Okay, so in our reading, we read through page 9 of Bhagavad-gita as it is introduction, in page 9 in this edition. Um, okay. Uh, I'll just pause there. If there's any sharing, questions, comments.
Good morning, dear Govinda. Thank you for sharing, and I do appreciate where you share personal examples and include your own transformation. It's I have a fresh commitment to chant 8 rounds every morning in the morning, and it's been a struggle. And I'm not necessarily staying up late, but I just find that if I'm not physically active in the morning, and often then I need to do the walking, the japa walking to get that commitment. Then I'm just like I'm kind of not even able to stay awake for the rounds. So I do the japa walking often. So that's yeah, inspiring to hear that you've transcended your karma from being a night person to be able to get up in the early hours. So that's an inspiring example. Thank you for sharing that. And then I was reading just ahead of where you read actually this morning, because I also have a commitment that's empowering, that I just touch Bhagavad Gita in the morning. I just touch it, and then just every time I touch it, I go, well, it would just be absurd to touch it and not read a page. And you know, but the commitment's not even like read a page, it's just, and I'm like maybe in a hurry and I walk past. I have the book placed where I can touch it as I walk past. And then I'm just like, okay, read a page. This is how I'm managing. And so this morning I was reading just ahead of where you read, where the introduction is describing Sanatana Dharma. And so it's like, my experience of that is it's kind of my experience of it. So don't take this isn't my class for you to to teach anyone anything. But it's helpful. It's another way to talk about what we also read in these pages this morning, from pages 8 and 9, essentially about who we are as Jiva souls, what is our role, what is our connection to Krishna. We're secondary enjoyers. Where is our true happiness? So I somehow connected, even though just a few days ago I was reading these previous pages, just listening to you reading them this morning, I was connecting and appreciating the evolution of, in some sense it's repetition, but it gets more and more nuanced with different terminologies, talking about the jiva, talking about the karma, then talking about the dharma, the eternal nature. Because even there on page 9, Srila Prabhupada's using metaphor to talk about our nature, and he's using nature to talk about our nature. And it's and for anyone that enjoys that hasn't read it, I would encourage you read The Light of the Bhagavat, and which Param Dasi's not here, but I'll talk about him anyway. we were reading that and we've fallen off, but we were reading some from an hour of the Light of the Bhagavad. I think we're closer to the end, but then we've not completed it. So we were relishing that together for some time. Yeah.
Light of Bhagavad, nice. Yeah, that's a special book imagery. Thanks for sharing. Glad to hear about that reading pastime of you and Prabhupada. Yeah, Light of the Bhagavad. That's basically Prabhupada's giving a poetic exposition on the 20th chapter of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam called Description of Autumn. So very, very beautiful. Thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate how you share that. Because, oh yeah, Prabhupada's, oh, and then, yeah, because also on the next page, Prabhupada again talks about how karma is temporary. Karma can be destroyed, it can be changed. Same time, he does it from a different angle with different nuance. And that's why I know I know this, I don't know, this might be the 30th time I'm reading the introduction of Bhagavad-gita. I know in my personal reading, maybe it's about 10 or 12 times. And we've given many Gita courses. As I think you're aware, we'll be starting another course, Bhagavad-gita, Yogic Principles and Transformative Coaching in December of this year. And so we always read Bhagavad-gita cover to cover and discuss it. But just, for me, it's not just like theory, but like Prabhupada's books, every one of his books, talking about them, it's just like ever fresh. Each time it's just like more and more filled with realizations. And I'll go through and go, oh, that wasn't there the previous time. So just Prabhupada is just so potent and empowered that that's like the proof that it's spiritual. Even if we have our favorite books materially, if we read a second time, third time, okay, that's enough. But Bhagavad Gita, just this introduction of Bhagavad Gita, each time I read it, it's like full of fresher and fresher realizations. Thanks for sharing. Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Thanks for that. Rukmini wrote, I have a recording of the Bhagavad Gita as it is. Verses play perpetually in my room, read by Damodar, the Bhaktivedanta Vedic Library. Recommended. Thank you. Thanks for that. Yeah. Vibration, transcendental vibration. And that's it, whether in the form of a recording, in the form of reading, to expose ourselves to this transcendental vibration of Srila Prabhupada somehow or other, then we make our life perfect. We're moving along on the path of perfection. And if we're associating, okay, I mean, we might associate with other vibrations. At the same time, if we do it in service to Prabhupada, then that's also the path of perfection. But if we associate with mundane vibrations and we intimately invite them into our heart and consciousness, then we get contaminated by the lower modes of nature. And I feel that, like instantaneously, just like I'm feeling like joy and enlivened now, and I've been up, for about 5 hours and chanting and Mangalarti and now discussing Bhagavad Gita. So just complete absorption, transcendental vibration. I mean, not complete absorption. I don't want to be overly generous with myself. Like when I'm chanting, it's like there's other vibrations going on in my mind, but still basically engaged in japa and things like that. So for like 5 hours. And then I know, like during the day, I like, let's say I click on something, on a news story on the internet, which sure, I consider it my service to keep somewhat in touch with events so that I'm not like too ignorant about things. But then if I kind of like overindulge, then immediately I can feel my consciousness dulled and covered. And then then it's difficult to pick up Bhagavad Gita because I've allowed my heart to slide down the slippery slope. Patrick from Prabhupada, we were just before you came, we were talking about you. Bhakti Devin shared his experience of yes, we were speaking about you. Yes, Bhakti Devin shared his experience of reading together with you the light of the Bhagavad. So, Hare Krishna. So we've read through page 9 of this edition of Bhagavad-gita as it is. Any other thoughts, comments, questions, realizations at this time? I'll just mention this since it's fresh for me. And yeah, I mean, yesterday I met and spoke, and some of you online might be aware of this. Yeah, some of you are online. Yeah, yesterday I hosted at my home, and I spoke with Jayadvaita Swami. Not everyone here knows who Jayadvaita Swami is, but he joined Prabhupada's movement. He was like a teenager, maybe in 1967, and so he's a very respected, so yeah, senior member of the Krishna consciousness movement, and he's been very involved with Srila Prabhupada's books. Yeah, so he's been serving for 57 years. 57 years. So he, Naveen Krishna Prabhu, and myself, we met and spoke about various topics connected with Srila Prabhupada's movement, including Prabhupada's books, Prabhupada's disappearance pastime. So just thought to share that, as it's very fresh for me. And I might be getting together with him again in the next 2 or 3 days. Hare Krishna. So I'll read another paragraph. Bhakti Oasis. Yes. So George or Danielle, please.
Hare Krishna, Dear Govinda. Thank you so much. I'm appreciating so much the discussion. I'm feeling so encouraged by Bhakta Devins and Rukmini's sharing about reading Bhagavad Gita. And yeah, I'm really appreciating the discussion around like reading Bhagavad Gita. Really, it's like the roadmap to life. Understanding I'm not the controller, Krishna is the controller, and that, there even might be cloud in my life, and we see this the analogy of the cloud, and no matter what difficulty is happening in my life, Krishna is there. Actually, the cloud is Krishna's energy. Without the sun, like Prabhupada says, the cloud wouldn't even exist. And recently I've felt a lot of relief, a lot of more increasing trust in Krishna, in just surrendering. I'm starting to see how our professional occupation is a means of getting to Krishna, is a means of realizing Krishna. A lot of my life is I've engaged in service from a have-to perspective, from like a survival, from having to withstand the burden of my choices as the controller in a situation or another. And I was just yesterday. I woke up and I was in Mangal Arati with Allison and Anasuya and Lakshmi Priya Prabhus, and I was just saying, I was like, yeah, I'm like, I feel really ill today. I don't know how I'm about to go through this day, and it's going to be a very challenging day with patients, with guests coming in from other cities doing service, and I'm just gonna ask Prabhupada for his mercy and just do it and see what happens. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. And I just experience myself throughout the day feeling energized. I experience like seeing how Krishna, like seeing how Krishna is a controller. And by the end of the day, I was even having conversation with Danielle. I was like, Danielle, I was like, imagine if this businessman had shown up to this meeting versus this other one that showed up, like that Krishna allowed him versus the other, and how Krishna is moving. Like, imagine this decision that we're about to make, like how different it would be. And we were both kind of in awe and appreciating like Krishna being the controller, trusting that even our apparent mistakes are a blessing from Krishna, understanding that like the abundance that we have and the abundance that we will have or not have is not everyone's abundance is already predicated from our karma, and it's not like one decision I make is going to be the one that like and knowing that Krishna, I mean, like maintains what we have and provides what we lack. Like all these different messages that are in Bhagavad-gita, in Srimad Bhagavatam, like seeing life through the lens of Srila Prabhupada has been such a blessing in my life, specifically in this big business conference that I had yesterday. And there was a decision that we had made like maybe a year or two ago that has been just kind of like in the back of my mind, just tormenting me. And because of yesterday, because of my like at least minute attempt at surrendering a little bit, seeing how Krishna is working in my life, I like let go of that anartha, that disturbance in my life, where I was like, oh, because while it is true that to some extent, like for whatever reason, where I am in my service right now, certain decisions can mean a can have significant consequences in terms of time and finances for the future. Um, like I'm experiencing so much relief in trusting Krishna. Even the presenters that were presenting at this thing, they're saying, I went from making so many millions to this many millions, and it wasn't satisfying. And now I'm trying to do it for God, and I'm trying to do it to serve people. And I'm like, yes, like I see it, like everything Srila Prabhupada is saying, it's like, it's coming alive. And I feel so blessed and so fortunate to have Bhagavad Gita, to have this association in a very like tangible, like visceral sense. I'm experiencing Krishna's mercy. I'm starting to see it, and it's the most exciting thing in my life. Like I was even having a conversation with my dad where he was like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you trying so hard? Like you're already okay. And seeing everything that you're reading, seeing everything that's happening in these meetings and in these things, and I'm like, yes, Dad, it's because of service. It's the point of service, it's a Srila Prabhupada. Like I see it, like I have this conversation with him, and then I see it in real life playing out, and I'm like, okay, validation, confirmation, it's beautiful. So I'm just feeling very excited, very grateful, and thank you so much for class. Thank you for all the affirmations.
Dr. George, Hare Krishna. Yes, I hear your excitement. I'm reminded, Damayanti, celebrating your Krishna conscious excitement. I'm reminded right towards the end of the 18th chapter, which is the final chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Sanjaya, because we talk about Bhagavad Gita, it's a dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna, true. At the same time, that dialogue is narrated by Sanjaya. So especially at the very beginning of Bhagavad Gita, at the very end, a little bit in the middle, but both basically beginning and end, we hear Sanjaya narrating. And at the end, Sanjaya says, yeah, that just immersed in this dialogue between Arjuna and Krishna, I'm experiencing a thrill at every moment. And that's Krishna consciousness. And I'm hearing that in your voice and in your vibration, George, that like this is enthusiastic, this is inspiration, this is thrill at every moment. And and that's coming, it's not contrived, it's coming because you're realizing Krishna in your profession, you're realizing Krishna in the business dealings. And yeah, and as we get more and more, there's a text also in the 18th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says to Arjuna, mat chitta saradurgani mat prasada tarishyasi atachat fam ahankaram nashoshasi vinankshyasi. Krishna says that if you're just hearing the chatter of your false ego and the material mind, we're lost in the misery of material existence. But if you hear the super soul, then we easily cross over the ocean material existence. Pratyakshavagamam dharmyam shushukam kartumaviyam. Krishna says this process is directly experienced. So the more we practice Krishna consciousness, and we're seeing Krishna everywhere, and we're seeing Krishna in that apparent mistake. We're seeing Krishna in what this person said, and this impossible synchronicity of events that we couldn't calculate in a million years. We're seeing Krishna, and then life is a thrill at every moment, and I'm moved and inspired by your vibration. Thank you, George. Yeah, and you started your sharing about in profession. So that is so Bhagavad-gita, right? Or was Arjuna, he in a sense he wanted to retire from his profession. He wanted to go to the forest, his profession, he's a kshatriya, he's a warrior. And he wanted to not fight the battle. And maybe for some, their spiritual choice would be to not fight a battle. So Arjuna in the Battle of Kurukshetra, it's real history. We can also see it symbolically. We all have our battles internal. We all have our battles in life. I know I have my battles in life and always have on so many dimensions. And so, right. So, so sattva can sometimes, well, let's say tamas, the mode of inertia, ignorance, can sometimes masquerade and camouflage as sattva. Oh, I won't fight this battle. I'm spiritual. I'm sattvic. But is it really tamasic ignorance, just out of fear? So Arjuna, when he got Bhagavad Gita, he stood strong, and I'm going to enthusiastically participate in my profession, which is a warrior, and to protect innocent people like that. So yeah, it's there's a text spoken by Narada Muni to his disciple Srila Vyasadeva. Srila Vyasadeva, he's a compiler of Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedas practically. So Narada Muni says to Vyasadeva, idam hi pumsas tapasa shutasya va sutas sviktasya suktasya champuri datayo avitru turta kavibir nirupito yadutam mashloka gunanuvarnanam. So Narada Muni in the text and Prabhupada in the purport, they speak about medicine. They speak about psychology and economics and social work and physics and art. They speak about all respectable human areas of endeavor. And they say that bhakti yoga, it's not about giving it up, but yadutama shloka. Like tama means ignorance, uttama means above ignorance, transcendental to ignorance, and shloka means the texts of the Vedas. And so the transcendental text of so that's the name of Krishna, Uttama Shloka, one who's glorified by the choicest verses of the Vedas. Yaduttama Shloka Gunanavarnanam. So Narada Muni and Srila Prabhupada, they encourage us, use your professions to cultivate and share Krishna consciousness, and to show the connection in your professions of Krishna with all energies. Hare Krishna. Any other comments or questions?
Dear Govinda, and I've already shared, so if anyone else has got something burning, please interrupt. And but I do have a thought, and maybe you've really already responded to this. I'm wanting, to ask this question in my way, and then hear your kind of more direct response to it. So, in the Bhagavad Gita, what is it saying? Okay, so you shared personally that life's full of struggles for you. I'm okay. So I think we can all relate to that. And then you were saying that, and so what does Bhagavad Gita say about appreciating our struggles? And then I guess I was inferring that when you say for you struggles, you don't mean necessarily like I've just had the same struggle my whole life. I mean, maybe that's true, and that's true with like several struggles, one particularly, something like that. Or maybe it's evolving struggles. Like the other day, Malini said, when we plan to enjoy that's when the miseries come. That's from, I think, Bhakta Prahlad or Prahlad Maharaj. Okay.
Yes.
And when he's 5 years old, he says, when we plan to enjoy, that's when the miseries start to come. So that seems related. That just popped in my mind. And then that was in our Thursday reading group, reading the Vidura, Kapila, teachings of Lord Kapila. Okay, that was shared. But anyway, back to my thought and my question. So, what does Bhagavad Gita say about finding gratitude for the struggles, like in the context of if we're comfortable is like the enemy of spiritual life, like in that context, like to be comfortable. So then it kind of occurred to me, well, yeah, that is like a practice, like the gratitude practice. And then so when struggles are there, sometimes I'm more like encouraged to chant and read and focus. Like this is what I'm thinking. So how does Bhagavad Gita address that? That's what I'm curious.
Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Devin. I'd say it's a major theme of Bhagavad Gita, what you're talking about. It's a major theme. So that could be a whole series of courses, but maybe a 2 to 3 minute a 2 to 3 minute synopsis based on my realizations. Okay, so I'll reference just as a beginning. Again, this is a theme throughout Bhagavad Gita. This is a theme. I'll reference chapter 2, text 14 and 15. And they're both verses Prabhupada references a lot. Matras parshas tu konteya shitoshna sukadugada agamapainu nijas tams tikshas vibharata. So Krishna says the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. One should tolerate them without being disturbed. So the distress, that's the struggles. So Krishna is saying happiness too. So to tolerate without being disturbed. In the next verse, Krishna says, Yam hi navyatiyante te pusham pushar shaba samaduka sukham dira so mitatvaya kalpate. And Krishna says, one who is steady in both and is not disturbed by either is certainly eligible for liberation. So the idea is that we, on a material platform, Prabhupada gave some examples. I gave the example of communication. Materially, there's going to be happiness and distress. And you mentioned about comfort. So comfort is the enemy of Tirena Bhakti Yogena Yajita Pusha Para, right? So we don't want to be complacent. So that's why, so the idea is that to respond to our struggles with gratitude, that, okay, this struggle, whether it's material happiness or material distress, but let's focus on what we would discern a struggle. Happiness isn't a struggle, but according to Bhagavad Gita, material happiness, that's also dangerous. Okay, but let's focus on struggle, distress, disturbance, miseries, problems. Okay, so the devotional mentality is to respond to them with gratitude. This is an impetus to deepen my enthusiasm, deepen my dedication and commitment to engage in the path of perfection, to engage in self-realization and devotional service. And that this struggle, this misery, whether it's with physical health or with other people or with my own mind or interpersonal relations or finances or residence, career, whatever life area. This struggle, this is a reminder. Thank you for the reminder that material consciousness, material existence, this isn't my home. I'm like a fish out of water here. And let that be an impetus, a catalyst to deepen my inspiration to engage in bhakti yoga and devotional service and to connect more fully with that joy that no material struggle can interfere with. And I would say it's natural in that, and again, that's when, Bhagavad-gita talks so much about steadiness. It means there's going to be happiness and distress in every life dimension, not to make life goals like, I'll just make the distress happy, then I'll be happy. No, there's always going to be happiness and distress in every area. And whether it's, again, the weather or relationships like that. And we can, endeavor to alleviate the suffering, this and that. But the idea is, sure, take care of all that responsibly, but give our life to cultivate that that happiness, that joy, that inner peace that'll never be destroyed by any material happiness or distress. And then the struggles, the distresses, they just become an impetus for deeper gratitude for this path of perfection that Srila Prabhupada and Sri Krishna have given us. There's a quintessential verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 14, Text 8, quoted by Lord Brahma when he's praying to Krishna after he got bewildered by Krishna. And Brahma prays that Tatenu Kampam Susamikshmano Budona Eva Makritam Vipakam Vidvadva Purpir Vidada Namaste Jivete Mukti Pade Sadayaba. And that verse really speaks to this conversation. He says that the pure devotee, the devotional heart, is grateful, especially for when life is going not according to script, is struggle and problems. And the devotional heart, the devotional person, just takes that as an opportunity to deepen their inspiration to focus on pleasing you, Sri Krishna. And that's the real platform of liberation, because then the modes of nature, the karma might be doing whatever it's doing its thing, but I'm not disturbed by it. I'm not disturbed by it. There's always disturbances. Right? Dirasta Trana Muyati. To the extent that we're in that consciousness, everything's an opportunity, whether so-called good or bad from the material point of view, everything's an opportunity to deepen my dedication to devotional service. Then in that state of mind, I'm not disturbed by the disturbances. So that's a source for real gratitude. Damayanti.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the class and discussion. I just wanted to add to what you were just sharing that recently I had an interpersonal conflict with a friend, and it came out of nowhere. It felt painful, and I was shocked initially because everything wasn't in the comfort zone in that friendship. But now that things came to light, and it brought up so much feelings for me, and the friend's feedback for me. Some of it I agreed with, some of it was just a difference of values, or actually I'm not even revealing fully all about who I am, so they don't even see this side of me. Or and then my feedback from myself was different. My constructive feedback, or self-reflection, my constructive self-reflection on myself was like, actually my weakness was in this area. Not even what she didn't even mention this, but actually I'm seeing a area for growth in this way. And I was able to make so many distinctions from it coming to all of that coming to light. And then it ended up being like a list of things for me to get back in integrity with that I didn't even realize. And some of that stuff that I needed to even take care of, some of it was outside of the friendship. I was like, oh, and by the way, I need to get back in integrity in a few other areas. And after making plans, making amends, making apologies, doing self-reflection, it's like, thank God this all came to the surface. It was out of the comfort zone. It wasn't like business as usual, but so much came to light. Now I feel freer. And I don't even know what our friendship, the form or shape of our friendship will look like afterwards. And I'm okay either way. It's like I had an attachment to the comfort of what the friendship looked like, but actually we could go closer because of this, or we could have distance naturally. Maybe that was what was needed, and there was a natural need for distance. I'm open to any form, and I feel affection. I'm glad I'm in an amends process, and it's just like wow, so happy. You know, like not happy or, you know, so grateful. Yeah. I just thought I'd share.
Thanks for sharing your personal, recent, fresh experience of this principle. And it's, I know, like in any genuine spiritual tradition, and any personal growth approach, this is a principle, you know, like, yeah, to, yeah, to be awake to the auspicious opportunities and so-called heavy thunderstorms, silver lining, not just silver lining, but really to see Om Purnamadaha Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachite Purnasya Purnamade Purnameva Vashishite. That's from the Ishopanishad. Everything's a complete and perfect arrangement for my self-realization. And you said, Damayanti, you're not sure how the form of the friendship will unfold. And the point is, like, the point isn't about how the drama will unfold. The point is that, yeah, all of the happiness, the distress, the dramas, it's all opportunity for self-realization, the actual goal of human life. And then in relationships, you know, relationships are meant to be, for truly spiritual relationships, a forum, a crucible, an opportunity to support each other in self-realization that's often uncomfortable, and oftentimes the distressing part is an opportunity for well, it's always an opportunity for profound self-realization. And that's the goal of our drama with finances and relationships and family and the house, because all of that is temporary. It doesn't mean it's useless if we relate to it and we respond to it in a way that deepens self-realization for ourselves and others. Thanks for sharing.
Hare Krishna, I just want to add that um, I took a few weeks and during that friendship process was sort of processing things internally.
Yeah.
And then I was like, okay, time has come to do a response. And I needed to respond. And I was like, okay, well, this I was traveling, and anyway, I chanted, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna read from Srila Prabhupada, and I opened wherever I was at in my course of reading the Srimad Bhagavatam. I can't even tell you the numbers or the place, but there were 3 verses in a row about, they were not only about friendship, but each of them mentioned friendship in the verse and or purport. There was at least phrases and paragraphs and sections of verses that spoke about association and friendship. And I felt like, okay, like I know the direction to go. And anyway, it was really wonderful how opening Prabhupada's book once again meets me right where I'm at. And I felt so supported, like, okay, this clarified a few things at least. And then I just have to go through the motions of the expressing myself. But yeah, and so the whole thing made me really check in, double check, and triple check. What do I really want out of friendship and association anyway? And even if it's uncomfortable, because, you know, I was thinking, well, what I really like to talk about, it really is. And I checked and sat with it and thought about it. What I really want to connect over is spiritual realization and God. But that doesn't mean I'm acting that way day to day. So it's hard for me to own it, because I was like, well, how can I even say that? That's what I want out of association, when daily I'm forgetting God all day, and um, going on the internet. Like I'm not focused on God. Still, I want that for my association, because of the fact that I'm not strong in God consciousness. I really need association that's focused there. And so I was able to sort of take a stand for it and express it, but lovingly. Anyway, I feel grateful for that whole experience. And it all was clarifying spiritually as well.
Thank you. I'm very moved by your sharing, Damayanti. Just maybe in closing it, this principle, okay, enlightenment, pure devotion, complete self-realization, that can be defined in relation to this principle. To respond spontaneously and consistently and unwaveringly with full realization of this principle, that's full enlightenment. And I said spontaneously, because, for example, like I know, like I can and I do think back to apparently unfortunate events in my life from 35 and 40 years ago and longer, and think, oh yeah, I see the opportunity for self-realization there, and the opportunity for humility and cultivating auspicious qualities, and that's wonderful. And then the pure devotional consciousness is spontaneously, whatever's happening, whether again it's materially good or bad, in quotes. Lord Chaitanya says, Dvaite Bhadra Bhadra Jnana Sabha Manodharm. Lord Chaitanya says this idea of good and bad in the material realm, it's all illusion. And there is absolute good. Absolute good is responding to a situation with deeper enthusiasm for bhakti yoga, for devotional service, and we do that spontaneously, then that's and steadily, that's the pure devotional platform. Otherwise, something really good can happen in any way, in relationships, in finances, something really good. And if that just becomes an impetus for us to forget who we are and become complacent about spiritual life, then it's absolutely bad. Hare Krishna. Thank you all for your association. Bhagavad-gita Ki Jai.
Hi.
Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai Hare Krishna. Jai
Hare
Prabhupada.
Krishna.